Welcome back to TCO Performance Center in Eagan. We thank Mike Zimmer, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, for kicking off our organized team activities dedication today. The Twins Last Night segment commences at 9:55. The Burke Bit, Matt Burke on the exclusive Will Family Perch, joining us at around 11. And Vikings Chief Operating Officer Kevin Warren from the second annual Team Up to Give Back event, Southside Village Boys and Girls Club in Minneapolis later in the show. Joining us now is Minnesota Vikings General Manager Rick Spielman. Do you love organized team activities? And good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on today. Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity to get out and actually see our guys start working against each other. And I think when you get out in these organized team activities, even though you can't have contact or anything like that, you're building that chemistry and that bonding and between the players. And they're actually playing against some pretty good competition. So you get an opportunity to see a lot of the new guys that came in, how they're matching up against some of our current guys. And the evaluation process started already on where we're going to be when we have to make our final cutdowns.
So you having been here a decade and a half, and you've worked in the National Football League quite some time, do you, this time of the year, like what's your mindset? Because I'm not going to say you're impatient, but you are very competitive, and you want everything to go as well as possible at every single step of the way. So, like, if you have so much new, that can be veterans, rookies, or whatever, and like there are mistakes and it's kind of slow to develop. How do you handle that?
That's coaches, because you have these young guys. I know we're putting in some new things offensively and trying to fit the scheme with the type of players we have up front. A lot of the moves that we did this offseason are going to fit that scheme because we're always trying to look for those physical type traits that they're able to do on the field to fit the scheme that they're running. And then defensively, I know Coach Zim's putting in a few new wrinkles here and there, so it's kind of fun to see some of the new things that you'll see from our defense this year as well.
I asked Mike Zimmer this question, and I liked his answer, and it's probably the dumbest thing you're going to hear all day. But, like, what purpose does rookie camp serve? And the only reason I bring it up is I know from Marcus Sherrills through Adam Thielen through Chad Beebe to Sean Bauer, players will emerge and jump up and eventually make the team. But it's like when you jam so much into these rookies in such a short amount of time, and then they come do it all with the veterans, it's almost like they need to relearn, So, like, from a general manager standpoint, what is the true purpose of rookie camp?
You talking about going right before training camp or when we had him in after?
Like a month ago, 3 weeks ago, right after the draft.
It's an opportunity for us from a personnel standpoint is to bring in, 40-plus tryout guys, guys that did not get signed after the draft. And we always do it the weekend after the draft because you get the first opportunity to jump on a guy or two that potentially will pop out at you. So
right.
We signed a couple guys this year that showed up during that rookie mini camp, and it's just another way of trying to find talent that maybe got overlooked during the process, and you never know who you're going to find. And to bring in 40 or 50 guys, if you end up finding one or two, those guys that could potentially turn into an Adam Thielen, I think it's extremely important as part of our process that we do that every year.
For you and your department when it comes to college free agents, how competitive has that become?
It's extremely competitive. It's organized chaos after. And what we've done and kind of what I've done this year, we didn't have to sign as many college free agents because we kept moving back and
to the seventh
and had a bunch of seventh-round picks.
Yep.
So I look at that as the start of our college free agency, technically, and you still get an opportunity to select players while having to compete against other teams. And then once the draft was over, we were very aggressive again going after specific guys and look forward to seeing if any of these guys surface over this next couple months.
You started as a scout with the Detroit Lions right around 30 years ago. Seriously, how weird is that? About 30 years ago, you're a scout for the Detroit Lions. All right, so here we are, 2019, general manager about ready to head into the season. How much have off-season practices this time of the year, how much have they changed since when you started to where we are now?
I think back when I started, we just had the mandatory minicamp.
Right.
Guys would just come in.
Unorganized team activities.
Yeah, we didn't have those then. Basically, guys were just working out. We had a 3-day mandatory minicamp, and that's the only time you've seen the guys during the off season.
Wow.
But now,
So you had to sweat condition when they got there.
yeah, but a lot of the guys hung out. I remember even when I was in camp with my brother, when I got signed by the Detroit Lions before I got cut 16 times, my wife told me to move on in my life.
Jeez,
but that's
got cut 16 times? Holy cow.
It's kind of like your radio, like when you first started out in radio, eventually
Yeah.
you landed on your feet.
Yeah, but you had more fortitude than me. You kept coming back. I would have become full-time racetrack announcer guy.
But it's a lot different now, and now it's almost year-round. And even when we have these dead periods where the players aren't allowed to be in the building or allowed to have contact,
Yeah.
it's so specialized now that these guys go out and work with specialized trainers and continue to work at their craft, because each year is getting more and more competitive, and the players coming in are getting more talented. And in order to stay on a team and continue to hold your spot, you have to do that during the off season.
And you as general manager here, you obviously work closely with your scouts. And you, about 3 decades ago, starting as a scout, I would imagine you have a high level of respect for that lifestyle and what goes into it, and sacrifices, quite honestly, that can be made. Life as a scout, like what is life as a scout like?
It's not a glamorous job. People think, oh, you're a scout in the NFL, but it's a lot of time away from your family.
Yeah.
You miss a lot of things that happen at home. I know you're on the road anywhere between 180 and 200 days out of the year. The benefit is you get a lot of Marriott points. But other than
Delta
that,
Sky Miles.
Well, you have to. When you're an area scout, you're going to drive your area.
Oh, geez.
But it's it's a job that is, people, I don't think, give them enough credit for what they do. It's hard because they're away from the team, and during the fall when they're not actually have their hands on the team on wins and losses, their job right now is, we just got back from the Blesto meetings last week. And
what's a Blesto meeting?
That's our combine meetings where we already started on next year's draft. So we have all the players that are going to be into next year's draft. I think we start out with over 8,000 names. I think last year we ended up grading over 1,100 players by the time we were done. We had 197 different college games in our film library. We go to these pro days. I think we had 141 pro days that we attended at all these schools, and looked at over 1,200 individualized workouts. So the process is long and tedious. When I went back, and we always evaluate everything, and actually how many people are involved in the draft nowadays to what it was when I first started. It was the scouts and maybe the trainer and the coaches.
And you hand wrote names on boards, right?
Well, yeah.
Or do you have like placards, like cards?
We had little. They did invent the magnetic card back in the 80s. We did have those, and I used them all the way up till 2 years ago. But
like no cell phones or no internet.
No, and
like,
I kid the young guys all the time is all I got when I first started was a road map and an atlas, and you actually had to read the atlas on how to get to where you go. You didn't have a cell phone. If you got lost, you had to go pull over to the gas station, call on a payphone.
Yeah,
it was hard because once you got on campus, where's the football office, until you got used to your area to find out where the football office was. If your office needed you or your family needed you, they're not calling you on your cell or texting you.
Jeez.
They're calling the school, and they're trying to locate you wherever the heck you're at in the building, trying to watch tape.
Send a carrier pigeon.
Yeah, so it was night and day from where it is now. But it's a hard job. It's a lonely job, but you got to be very self-motivated to do that. But I also know they share in the same success on the field, because those are the lifeline. Those guys are the lifeline of this organization, to go out and initially identify all the talent. And then as we go through our process, once the season's over, we've had it pretty much built from everything the scouts have done.
Back in the mid-'80s, turns out Rand and McNally were as important as Elway and Marino. Rick Spielman, general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, is on the 9 to noon radio show. We'll chat about the 2019 Vikings and organized team activities after this. Minnesota Vikings are on the field for organized team activities number 5. Then later today, the entire organization heads to the 2nd annual Team Up to Give Back volunteer event, Southside Village Boys and Girls Club in Minneapolis. Members of the Minnesota Vikings, including our current guest, General Manager Rick Spielman, head coach Mike Zimmer, the players, everybody with the organization is going to be giving back and assisting the Boys and Girls Club at Southside Village. This obviously is very important to many, and this organization has just been so good about doing stuff like this and giving back, and you do it again today.
Yeah, Logan Johnson and Brett Tabor, those guys head up our community relations and do a phenomenal job. And they do a phenomenal job with our players as far as getting them out in community and getting them involved. We have our community Tuesdays every Tuesday during the season. I think every one of our players, including our practice squad last year, participated in Community Tuesday. So, one, I think it's important that our players, not only what they do here in the building, but when they're here, they go out and represent Minnesota Vikings the right way, and that's the type of players that we have here, and it's very important, and they all feel it's very important to give back to the community.
And you have worked with this team for 14 years. I mean, this obviously the giving back facet of it, but being a general manager, sweating the wins and losses. What are some things you truly enjoy about working with the Minnesota Vikings?
It starts with the ownership and with the Wilf family, and there's not better owners in the NFL or in any professional sports team than the Wilf family. Not only just working with them and talking with them on a daily basis, but the facilities here at TCO, Performance Center, U.S. Bank Stadium, the resources they give us to do the contracts that we've been able to do, to put the best team possible out there. Trust you and your staff to do the job as long as you keep them informed on what's going on. And it's just the people in the building. It's a very unique culture where the business and the football side come together, and we try to work as one because there's so much crossover now maybe than there wasn't a few years ago. And for us to be under one roof in this building, and I go up to business meetings all the time just to learn so I know what they need and is there anything we can provide from a football team. They also have the respect of what we need to get done, on the field and respect the privacy and the time of the coaches and players, but it's worked out great. And to be a part of a organization, starting with our ownership group, that provide everything necessary for us to win. It makes you excited to get up and come to work every day.
On the field, are you sensing your quarterback is more settled in and maybe more relaxed just with things off the field, just knowing where he's going to live and all that kind of stuff than he was last year?
I think just coming in and going, this is second year here, so he's familiar with everything. I think the other thing that you're seeing during these OTAs is when we brought in Gary Kubiak and Kevin Stefanski became the offensive coordinator, they're identifying things that he's done that's made him successful through his career.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we're implementing on offense now are set up for Kirk to have the best success possible.
The maybe because of a lack of consistency with the running game last year, the play action probably wasn't where you guys wanted it to be. So is that a major emphasis into 2019? Having the play action become more lethal than it was?
I think it started out just what are we and what is our identity on offense and what are we going to be? And I know since Coach Zimmer's been here, whenever we're able to play good defense, we're able to establish a running game to set it up with the play action now and to make big plays off of that. That's when we had the most success. I think last year we got away from that a little bit. I know that was a point of emphasis, bringing in Gary Kubiak and making Kevin Stefanski the offensive coordinator. When we went through the draft process and the free agency process and started to rebuild, especially the offensive side of the ball, what are we looking for? And I know our scouts do a phenomenal job identifying the strengths and weaknesses of each player that we talk about. But now when you bring the coaches and layer them in, when we go through all these meetings, what players are going to fit with what you want to do from a schematic standpoint. When you can get that on the same page is when you got the best chance for success.
Rick, what can you analyze with your first-round pick, Garrett Bradbury, this time of the year? Non-contact, and he slides right into the center spot. He's a first-round pick. But, what can you pull from him now that maybe can tell you, yes, we hit on one?
The one thing that you see is he's first in the building every day, and he's working extremely hard, and you have to be intelligent to play the center position because you have to make all the checks and calls along with the quarterback. And I think he checked every box for us during the whole process, not only what he is as a player on the field, but his work ethic, his passion for the game, the high character, the intelligence, everything that we were looking for, and felt very fortunate that he fell to us at 18. But it's funny is all rookies because it's a little different when you get up to this level. And then all of a sudden, Coach Zimmer's showing his double-A gaps and the blitzes and a few things he's never seen before. So I know yesterday he was like, whoa, this is a little different than what I've seen in college, but it's all part of the process.
Yeah.
But we feel that he's got a chance to be pretty special for a long time.
In believing that you absolutely wanted Garrett Bradbury at 18, and with the way the draft was falling, did you sweat between 16 and 18?
Well, you never know what happens, and so you're sitting there and you're reacting, and that's do you sit and hold, or do you trade up, or do you trade back? And I think just with all the time and the preparation that we put into it with the coaches and with the scouts, and going through a million different scenarios, that we were prepared for everything. And to sit there and have Bradbury fall to us and Irv Smith Jr. fall to us in the second round, and then to start trading back, I think 4 times in the third round because there were 6 players that we really liked, and we were actually able to get 2 of those players in Madison and Drew Samia, the guard from Oklahoma. So to get those 2 guys, I think are going to be huge additions as well.
What have you seen from Irv Smith so far that you like?
Well, he's an athletic tight end. He's a little bit of a mismatch type guy. He's also learning, just like all these rookies are, and are swimming a little bit right now since it's only the second week they've really truly been here.
Yeah.
But you can see they're going to be able to do a lot of different things with him about creating mismatches and splitting him out, and hopefully having a safety or a linebacker have to come out and cover him, because we feel he has that type of athletic ability to create those mismatches, especially in the passing game.
Is it fair to say when training camp begins and then you play preseason games? I mean, Alexander Madison, the Boise State running back, he was the 3rd-round pick, so maybe he's favored in this battle against Mike Boone, but he has to beat Mike Boone for that backup spot, right?
Yeah, no, and Amir Abdullah we signed back, and Rock Thomas, so we have some really good competition going on there, and all the rookies have to earn their spot. And if they're not ready to play, then Zim's not going to play them. You know, we want to put our best 11 guys out there, so when we open up with Atlanta, we have our best football team. But a lot of these rookies are getting the opportunity now, and that's why you have the rookie mini camp. And I think we're going to bring them in early before training camp again to give them the extra time to catch up and give them the attention that the coaches can just spend with the rookies only. Not only to work on schematic things and plays, but also to work on technique.
So for like Drew Samia, the guard from Oklahoma, 4th-round pick, Bradbury, 1st-round pick, slides into center. We're going to raise you there. But like for Samia, say the Elon tackle that you took.
Ole from Elon.
Yeah, Ole from Elon. Jalen Holmes in his 2nd year. Hercules Madaafa, 2nd year. He's back. This time of the year, is it virtually impossible for players like that to win jobs because there's no contact?
No, there's no contact
Armin
out
Watts.
there, but you can see all these guys and you can see their athletic traits.
Okay.
And the one thing that we really truly try to identify, especially in that third day, not that Thursday pick and Friday picks are not athletic, but truly look at guys that have potential, that have a huge amount of upside, that may be a little bit behind for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And the other big benefit, I think, to us this year was, even though we weren't in the playoffs, our coaches went down and coached that East-West game. And Ole from Elon was down there. Watts was down there.
Yep.
So our coaches actually worked with those guys for a week and had pretty good insight on what these guys' potential was.
So that's the behind the scenes of like how that works. Robert Rodriguez, your assistant defensive line coach, works with Andre Patterson. He's working the East-West game. He's working with Armin Watts. He comes back and tells you, obviously you have final call here, but I really like this guy from Arkansas I was working with.
Right, and then you line it up with what the scouts saw, and he had a really, you know, this year really started to flourish and come into his own, and then that continued through the pre-draft process down at the East-West, and even went at the Combine and through his pro day workout. So those are the things that you are looking at. You know, we set the board initially starting in December and February before we go to the Combine.
Wow.
But you start watching guys, and are they ascending or are they descending down?
Yeah.
And a couple of guys, all of a sudden you start seeing them going down, so that brings up some concern. Why the most important part of this process, why is he not doing as well, or what's going on? And then you see guys that continue to rise. And most of the time, when we stuck with guys that are ascending through the process, were guys that ended up being pretty good players.
Does it matter to you when guys skip bowl games?
It does a little bit, because first thing I asked them is, okay, and I'll give you an example of this. If you're in the last game of your contract here as a Minnesota Viking and you're going to be an unrestricted free agent, are you not going to play in that last game?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to hear go, oh, no, I'd play
Yeah.
because I'm this and that. And I says, well, why didn't you play in a bowl game then?
What when you watch film with Mike Zimmer, like say it's during the season and you guys start watching film of a game Monday morning, say at 6 a.m. What's it like watching film with Mike Zimmer? What do you guys
It
do?
depends. Yeah, some Monday mornings at 6 a.m. are brutal. Some of them, he's very particular on guys with their technique. But it's great for me to sit there and listen to him talk through the game.
Yeah.
And to talk on who did what, because you may think this player screwed up when actually it was another player because of the scheme or the play that was called. So it really helps myself and him be on the same page. So I don't know what the plays are called during the game, but as we go through them and review them on Monday, he'll point out a lot of things to me on why this worked or why this didn't work, and it helps get us on the same page.
With the Kevin Stefanski offense maturing this time of the year, what are some things you look for, and like how is it maturing?
I think you've seen, like, from week 1 to week 2, and especially in yesterday's practice, you start to see things start to click. Guys aren't thinking as much that first week, and they're installing the playbook, and everybody's kind of thinking instead of just going out and playing. But once you finally understand what the scheme is, what the play is, what's expected on each play, what each guy's job is, you just go out there and just start playing and just play with your natural ability. And that's what you're starting to see, like, the second week that we're in OTAs, where last week maybe the defense was ahead because they've been together so long and know what's going on.
Yeah.
We have a lot of new parts on the offensive side. But all of a sudden in week 2, with those guys out there on the field and competing against our defense, the offense had a very good day yesterday.
Deep draft receivers, Dylan Mitchell and Olabisi Johnson. What are you seeing from them so far?
Both of them have all the physical traits to play in this league. You know, for whatever reason they were there, you know, later in the rounds, and they just kind of fit from the type of guys that we looked for.
Yeah.
We had some pretty good grades on them. I know the coaches and scouts like those guys tremendously. We didn't want to compete with those guys after the draft because those would have been two hot items. So that's, again, where you have all those extra picks in the 7th round, and you have a strong opinion on those guys. And a lot of times I don't get an opportunity to see some of those guys in those later rounds, but our coaches and our scouts do such a phenomenal job, and they work together. And they go with those. We spend just as much time through that college free agent, those later round guys, that the coaches and scouts get together and they come up with their lists, and then they'll come in and they'll present. Then we'll watch some highlight tapes on them, and so I can get a feel for them. And then we stack them, and then we kind of target specific guys there towards the end of the draft in college free agency.
Last one, George Paton, your assistant general manager, vice president of player personnel. You guys have worked together almost a decade and a half. So outside of the professional aspect of it, when you work together with somebody that closely for that long, how close of friends have you guys become?
Oh, I'm a godfather to one of his children.
Wow. Wow.
No, it's to have a guy like George and for us to work together as long, because I get pulled in a lot of different directions. I don't 30% of my job's personnel, but I know George handles the personnel on a day-to-day basis, and so I can able to free me up to do a lot of other things that I have to do in the organization. But to have a guy like that, and to have a guy to be with him as long as we've been together, I never have any worries about anything getting done. If there's a guy that comes up on a waiver wire, they'll come in, hey, you know, we think we should claim this guy, then we'll sit there and watch him as a group, or, you know, working through the trades and working through things like that, him and Rob Brzezinski, and working from the cap standpoint. There's just so much continuity in our, you know, in our group right now, and working with the coaches and working with the scouts. You don't have to explain everything. You can almost look at each other, and everybody knows what everybody's, you know, thinking, and you just go about and do your business, and it makes it very smooth operation.
Go Twins, right?
Go Twins. I got a chance to go down there and see them play Sunday.
Yeah,
and
Target feels nice.
It was a beautiful day, and the crowds were phenomenal down there, and it was very exciting to be a Minnesota Twins fan.
My man, thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yep, Rick Spielman, general manager of the Minnesota Vikings.